Hey everyone, Rarity Dash here. Time for another Patreon-sponsored blind reaction. And this one comes to you courtesy of Pawnee, who has requested that I react to Cinemassacre 200 by Cinemassacre. So yeah, Cinemassacre, if you are unaware, is the YouTube channel for the Angry Video Game Nerd. Though this is not an Angry Video Game Nerd video, or at least not, it's not labeled as one. So this is probably going to be him doing something different. Which it makes sense that he would do different things, since it is called Cinemassacre and not the Angry Video Game Nerd channel. So yeah, he's probably doing different stuff all the time. But I haven't seen any of it yet. This will be my first non-Angry Video Game Nerd video from him. So that could be interesting. Not really sure what it's going to be. I mean, it is just the channel name plus 200. So not really sure what to expect here, but hopefully it's a fun video. Let's get started though and see. Here we go. Cinemassacre.com. So yeah, not just the channel name, but also his website. In 2008, okay, that's a long time ago.
Who's that?
11 years now. Wow.
Dude.
Wow.
Well, that's me. In fact, it's the oldest photograph of me that I know of.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Hair was a bit curlier then.
I look pretty
good.
funny
Good.
in most of these old photos and Super 8 films. This was back in the early 80s, and at the time, taking a picture or shooting some Super 8 was actually really exciting.
Cute kid.
There were no digital cameras, and video was rare, so you had to wait to get the pictures or film developed. But it was fun doing stuff in front of the camera and then waiting to see what it looked like. To sum it up, the camera brought the beast out in me. But in real life, I was extremely shy. Throughout high school, hardly
is that how it still is?
Classmates would ask me things like, "Hey, come on, James, talk. Tell us something about yourself. What do you do when you go home?" And I'd answer, "Well, I make movies." It was the last thing anybody expected to hear. Then they'd ask me where, how, what, when, and why. Well, I could answer all of that except for why. I don't know why. It's just something I do.
Yeah.
And that's the story of my life. To this day, I've made 199 films, and right now, that number is changing to 200.
Okay, well that's cool.
Movie, you're watching it right now. This is Cinemassacre 200.
I see. Well, that
on how it happened.
That explains the title, by James Rolfe.
It all started at a very young age when I got an audio tape recorder for Christmas. I began recording my own stories, complete with sound effects and doing voices for all the different characters.
What about me? Give me time to finish shit like get my car before I kick your butt.
Then I got a camera and spent most of my days going out in the yard with my friends and taking pictures of everybody making silly faces. Then we started having fights with Nerf swords and plastic baseball bats and started making up adventure stories, largely inspired by video games like Legend of Zelda and cartoons like Ninja Turtles. We would pretend that a streetlight was a long-necked dragon, that a turtle-shaped sandbox was an evil monster, and my dog was the vicious four-winged terror. Sometimes I would even draw on the pictures.
Yeah, I definitely don't have this many pictures of my childhood,
so by putting them all
it's kind of cool that he does.
The story, I was sort of learning the basic concept of editing.
Cool.
So after telling stories with just audio to telling them with just visuals, I was introduced to the video camera.
Hi, Dave. No, it's on. It's on.
Now, it wasn't just about picture and sound, but movement also. And the best part about it, unlike film, was that you get instant results. Pop the tape in the video player, and there you go. It's right on your TV.
Wait, is this... Are these pants?
Wow.
What the heck was that?
Now, at the time, VHS cameras were expensive. It was more like for family events. But as time went on and I continued to abuse it more and more, it gradually became my own.
You're upside down! Look down! Look down! I said look down, not up! Look down!
I often used to run around with the camera like some kind of virtual reality flying simulator. Soon my ambitions were growing higher. I wanted to make movies, so I got my friends together and staged these little slapstick comedies.
Tastes pretty bad. Tastes worse than beer. Take a bite out of crime.
Wow.
Nothing we did was rehearsed, and that's the way most
I wouldn't expect it
once I
to be.
started writing scripts, everybody had trouble remembering their lines and eventually lost interest. So some of my early movies never got finished. So I started making movies without actors. Instead, I used puppets or action figures. It's almost like playing with toys through the eye of a kid. Sometimes I'd actually act in the films myself, and the plot
giant
would
movie
involve
director.
my toys coming to life. This was before Toy Story.
Cool. I mean, you thought of it first.
I was learning the basics of composition, how to use foreground and background space, and to get the characters to move, I would sometimes use strings, but most of the time it was just me moving them with my hands, so I had to be careful not to show my fingers.
Yeah.
And this was also good practice for framing shots. When making a movie,
Invasion
you're
of the
often
sticky
trying
stuff.
to crop out stuff like lights, crew, or a fake set, so this was good training in a way. Eventually, I got tired of these action figure films, so I started focusing on other forms of art, such as drawing.
Do you see the line in this picture?
Painting.
Nice.
And using primitive computer programs.
Well, cool.
I wrote books by hand, one of them based on The Legend of Zelda. I also illustrated a series of adventure comic books, which I kept up with on a monthly basis. I was even making movies on good old Mario Paint.
He kept busy as a kid.
Eventually, I started taking Saturday classes at an art university for animation. Here, I was able to take advantage of the school's animation equipment. Basically, just a camera pointing down at a table connected to a time-lapse VCR. I made a series of cutouts and turned them into adventure epics. I was only 13, and I realized what I wanted to do with my life.
Wow.
I wanted to make
doing animation.
But not like this. It was too tedious. I wanted to do live action. Meanwhile, I was becoming quite a movie buff and had already collected hundreds of films, whether they were taped off TV or I bought them with whatever money I could scrap up. I loved movies, especially slapstick comedies and classic horror films.
Good ones.
And I just wanted to make my own. My biggest problem at the time was finding actors, so I decided, screw it, I'm just going to make a movie, even if I have to act in it myself. And that's what I did. At the time, I was already running an annual haunted house exhibit for Halloween and had collected a whole bunch of costumes and props, so I decided to use whatever I had, and I acted as every character in the film, not to mention I was also the camera operator. And I didn't have a tripod. I was stacking the damn thing up in the books.
Wow.
I literally did everything, and this was especially difficult because there was no such thing as editing yet, at least not for me. The raw footage was simply the finished movie. When I would push record, the camera had a 3-second delay. That was just enough time for me to run into frame and do my thing. And when the shot was done, I'd have to rewind the tape and cue it to the exact spot where the next shot was supposed to start. I couldn't even possibly describe how difficult this was.
Yeah,
especially
it doesn't.
This shot where I had to get inside the closet before the camera would start and shut the doors.
Oh.
A lot of times the costume would get caught in the door.
Wow.
And if I messed up, I'd have to rewind the tape, cue it up again, and give it another try. Also, I was relentlessly switching costumes back and forth because everything was shot in order. When I showed the half-finished product to my friends, they got real excited and they wanted to be in it. So I got my actors back and started making movies again. And I've been making them ever since. I was 15, and this movie, A Night of Total Terror, was the turning point of my life. It's no doubt that my early films sucked real bad. But as time went on, they progressively got better for 2 reasons. One, my own sensibilities, and the other, because of technical advancements.
Yeah.
The real problem was editing. From the beginning, there wasn't really any way to do it. That's why my approach was blunt and simple. Don't edit. Get it right on the original raw tape. Stop and record was the way to go. But this caused lots of problems for reasons I don't even need to explain, and it makes me sick to think I made so many movies this way. It drove me nuts, and I was desperate to find a way to edit, no matter how crude. So eventually, I started using 2 VCRs. What you do here is connect 2 VCRs like they're mating. You play your original raw tapes in the first VCR, cue up the scene, and hit record on the other. The first drawback is obviously the fact that this is linear editing, so everything must be done in order from beginning to end. But you can't even get a frame-accurate cut. You just have to be lucky. When cueing the edited tape, you'll find the exact moment where you want the cut to happen. You'll pause it here and then hit record. It'll go into a standby mode, yet the tape will be cued a few seconds from where you stopped it at. So then you play the source tape, and when the spot comes you want to cut to, you hit record. Now, once again, there's a delay, so you have to time it perfectly. It was a nightmare, but I cut so many movies this way, I actually became a master at it. My favorite moment was the fight scene
Kung Fu werewolf
from outer space. The
That's
actors
great.
would go through the choreography several times, and God bless them, it was freezing cold. And I would keep changing my camera angles, and then with the 2 VCRs, have to match cut them all together. I also did a music video for a Black Sabbath song in which several different images would flash by, some of them only lasting a fraction of a second. Now, there's 30 frames a second, and I knew that the delay on the VCR was 13 frames.
Oh, God.
It was that sick. I had it down.
Wow. To do that on
Still,
2 VCRs?
With this. I
Damn.
couldn't do cross dissolves or anything other than straight editing. I had no flexibility to go back and change anything without re-editing the whole thing. And titles was another story.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, I used to just write them on paper and shoot it. But I wanted to know how to superimpose them on the screen, you know, like they do in real movies. So I put some plastic wrap on the TV screen, and I wrote on it with a marker. Then I just shoot the screen. It was kind of an interesting effect.
I mean, I guess that's one way to do it.
One effect which I could use consistently was when I discovered my camera had a titling feature.
Oh.
But it was really weird. You still had to write the title on paper, preferably in a bold black marker. You point the camera at the paper and you hold down the memory button, and then it makes like a digital image of it on the screen. You had to be careful not to get shadows in there, and often the effect was quite messy, but it did the job. But this also meant that your titles would have to be shot live. So when I was shooting the movie, I'd have all my pieces of paper with me and the titles ready. The only way I knew how to lay the titles in later was, again, to record the TV screen. But then I thought, well, if I have to draw the titles on the screen, why not draw anything?
Okay.
Lots of times, I used to make my friends interact with ghosts and all kinds of weird creatures.
Okay, well that
Eventually,
works.
I purchased a title maker for $200. For me, it was a lot of money back then. It was basically just a keyboard. I'd connect it to my Duo VCR editing system, set up a title, and while recording, I'd make it appear. So not only was I editing, but at the same time, I had to make the titles come up on cue. You could fade the titles in and out, and then I was like, hey, wait, if I just make a solid background color, I could fade to black. But unfortunately, you can still see through it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's transparent. But fading to white was perfect and solid.
Oh.
Especially if it was a snow scene, it worked out fine and actually looked pretty good. Sometimes I wanted to use fast speed like an old silent comedy. The only way to do it was hit fast forward and record it. Depending on the tape or the VCR, it would usually have a lot of junk on the screen. But sometimes it would come out pretty clear. Other times, I'd want to use slow motion. Sometimes VCRs had a slow motion feature, but either they'd be too slow or cause too much distortion. So lots of times, I was just hitting pause and unpause really fast.
Okay, I mean, that's one way to do it.
Sometimes I'd want to play it in reverse.
Well, that's, I mean, you got rewind.
Another problem was trying to make images upside down. For this shot, I was trying to create the illusion of a shit monster crawling up the building.
It came from the
The
toilet.
effect would
Wow.
be accomplished by
Wow.
simply dumping the quote-unquote shit upside down.
Very
The
mature.
only way to get an upside-down shot was to film it upside down.
Yeah?
Now, the biggest problem of all was audio. From the beginning, my first concern was trying to add music. The first approach was simple. Cue up the music on a cassette player and hold it next to the camera. Yeah,
Okay.
live, while shooting the damn movie. If I cut camera, the music would cut too. Not to mention, I couldn't do a mix to balance the dialogue with the music.
Yeah.
So the second method was to record the TV screen using the audio from both the TV speaker and the tape player. It was a mess, but it worked. The third technique, for about $50, I bought a controller that had an audio dubbing feature. Now I could dub music right on the first generation tape without having to record the screen. But the problem here was that it erased all the original audio, replacing it with the new audio. So if I wanted music, dialogue, and sound effects all at the same time, I had to get all the actors together and re-record their lines. The voices would never sync up properly.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
used it for comedic effect.
Your mother's mom!
The fourth and final technique was a complicated one, but it worked most effectively. I'd edit like normal, keeping all the natural audio and dialogue. Then I'd copy the edited movie onto a third generation tape. While this was copying, I was dubbing all the additional audio without erasing the original. I was fading the music in and out while doing all the Foley sound effects at the same time, basically performing the entire soundtrack.
That's really cool. Wow. He was really committed. This is
It's very hard to explain how this all worked, but just trust me, it was hell. And then I got a computer, and that was the end of all that bullshit.
yeah.
In college, we shot film and did everything the old-fashioned way.
Computers
Splicing the film by hand is
make everything
probably
easier.
the worst thing ever. But with the advent of digital video and nonlinear editing, things are much easier now. The more recent you're born, the more luxury you have. To me, it didn't matter how things would get done. It was just
Kind of
a matter
respect
doing
him
it.
more for having
One thing
figured
I
this
always
out, though.
enjoyed was cheap special
That's,
effects. Sometimes the fact that you can tell something is fake only adds to the charm because
Yeah?
it engages the audience in the creative process of what it takes to make a movie. Cinemaphobia was one of my favorites. It's a psychological portrait of an overworked film actor who's being chased by an evil camera. Whether he's imagining it or it's really happening is up to the viewer. Now there's a part where the camera walks down the steps.
That's
throw
cool.
A candle at it, lighting the whole living room on fire, and it was obviously all done with special effects.
Yeah,
The
you're
fire
not
was
gonna
just a fog with
not gonna
smoke and
actually
red lights.
light your living room on fire.
Shots which showed a real fire, but that was done outside, far away from the house, on just a small piece of carpet and
Good.
a cardboard wall. I also got a fire engine into the movie, and that was just because I had access to it, so I wrote it in. And that's what you gotta do sometimes. But this film got
Okay,
me
I guess
lot
you
of
knew a
positive
firefighter.
reactions, and it allowed me to let loose with the camera work. After all, movies are a visual art, and it's fun to be able to do this kind of stuff and, you know, just open your subconscious. Curse of the Cat Lover's Grave was my junior film in college. It was a horror film done in 3 acts, each representing a different style: the chiller, the shocker, and then the splatter flick.
Ooh. Okay.
For the chiller, I had a scene in which a guy robs a grave. Now, rather than have him actually dig a 5-foot hole in the ground and stall the production, I dug it beforehand, by myself in a blizzard, I might add, and then I laid boards of wood over top, covered it in a tarp, and then put dead leaves over it. So he would only pretend to dig, and then we'd uncover the hole. I was shooting film at the time, and the whole fucking roll came back black, wasting over $100 and a precious day of shooting.
Wow.
Luckily, I shot video as a backup. Now, screening the film at the Junior Film Festival was a huge success. The reactions I got was out of this world. I mean, there were shock moments in the film that actually made people jump out of their seats.
Oh.
The stabbing scene had everybody laughing so loud you couldn't even hear the movie.
Those sound effects. That's
The satisfaction I got from this, from making people laugh and making them scared,
pretty great.
was the best time I had yet. I mean, I like to find the humor in horror films.
Red zombie.
Just to see how fake the blood is. I mean, this is something I've been doing for a long time.
Ooh.
I used red food coloring, ketchup, Kool-Aid, anything you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed doing comedy horror flicks, but for my senior film, I decided to try a more serious approach.
Okay.
The Jersey Odysseys Episode 1, Legend of the Blue Hole, was based on urban legends in New Jersey. It's a portrait of a rebel and his search for the unknown. When he learns of the Blue Hole, rumored to be bottomless and the home of the Jersey Devil, he becomes determined to find it. Rather than special effects or gags, I was going for trying to draw the audience into the story and hit them with a twist ending. It went over so well that my school screened it twice. My first postgraduate film was a return to horror comedy, The Deader the Better. It's about 2 guys who work in a cemetery making a living killing the dead. I used the same sort of splattery blood effects that I've been doing, but this time I was experimenting with some digital tricks.
Yeah.
Like, we'd have the person lay down and then smash a watermelon or something, and we put the 2 shots together, and there you go.
Okay.
Aside from being a gore fest, the big thing about it was that I built the cemetery in my parents' garage. I covered the floor with black tarp, spread out piles of dead leaves, hung black fabric from the walls, brought in real trees, and hung them by string. Then I carved all the tombstones out of styrofoam and painted it to look old. I got a big spotlight for the moon, flooded the place with fog, and there you go, a creepy cemetery. It took a long time, and it was a lot of work to put together. And some people have asked, why not just shoot in a real cemetery? Well, several reasons. I mean, one, the kind of stuff we were doing, maybe a little sacrilegious,
Yeah.
Two, well, the whole thing takes place at night, and if we used a real cemetery, we couldn't shoot during the day, whereas in the garage we could shoot all day long. And
Makes
still
sense.
night. But most important, I wanted complete control over the lighting. I wanted it to look like an artificial graveyard, to have the style of a 1930s horror film.
Cool.
There was also a scene where a zombie crawls out from a grave, so I had a layer of drywall and wood which I propped up on cinder blocks. The zombie would lay down underneath and then come up through the hole. Because of this setup, we had to shoot this scene first and then take it down and then set up the rest of the cemetery. This is one of several times I used the garage. As I mentioned earlier, I had an annual haunted house exhibit for Halloween, and there were paper walls dividing all the rooms. And all this was in the same garage, and I kept it a Halloween tradition for 6 years in a row, all through high school. Then for The Legend of the Blue Hole, there was a scene which took place in a mysterious antique shop, so I collected a bunch of old weird stuff and set it all up in a corner with some spooky lighting, and there you go. Most people thought it was a real store, but nope, it was just the garage. Over the years, I've recycled locations and props
figuring out set building.
times. I've made all kinds of crazy movies in every back-ass kind of way possible. I've defined my own style, my own taste and craft, but what I lacked was a way to show my work. After blindly sending out to film festivals without any idea what they're looking for, I started hosting my movies on my own website, Cinemassacre.com. And as a result, I proved that the internet is the best place to get stuff seen and is the ultimate form of exposure. A short series I did of angry video game reviews was launched into a franchise.
Yeah?
It was just one little thing I did as a joke, ironically taking less effort than most of my other work. But
that's the thing.
Connection with retro gamers and anyone with a good sense of humor, I guess, it exploded on the internet. And it's kept me busy producing episodes on a regular basis. And it's slowing down my other projects, but at the same time, it's bringing more attention to my other work. And on top of that, it's the first time I've ever gotten paid to do what I do. So that's my life story. I just like making movies, from the writing, the pre-production stages, the collaborating, the shooting, the editing, and eventually the audience reactions. It's a rewarding experience. Now, most of the movies
Still
I
doing
made are
some
short,
animation,
but I have plans
that's
for
cool.
features in the works. From the beginning, my films have always had an independent, do-it-yourself attitude, and that's what Cinemassacre refers to. It's the insane driving power behind my work.
Yeah.
Making movies is not easy, and today, more and more people are doing it. And it's not something you can do and expect to be rewarded. I mean, you can't have any superficial goals with it. It's just something that you have to have a natural passion for. So, to all fellow filmmakers, I have the most respect. I hope you enjoyed hearing my story. Maybe you can relate to it, and if not, hope you found it inspiring. It's simply my goal to just keep doing this stuff, and there should be big stuff coming in the future. Thank you for watching Cinemassacre's 200th film.
Wow. Okay, I mean, that's kind of eye-opening. I mean, I've always enjoyed his content, but this is just kind of bringing a newfound respect to it. Just, I admire the drive that he has and just how he figured all this out, and just by just trial and error, just figuring out his equipment and how to edit without like professional anything, and just figuring out how to put all the pieces together to make something. This isn't something that kids like do anymore. This is great. This is just so much yeah, I mean, so much respect. James, he's a talented guy, and I was completely unaware of it. I mean, all I know is Angry Video Game Nerd, and I kind of find after this that's kind of a sad thing that is what he's known for, because he just does have so much drive and passion and just like ability that that being the thing that takes off is kind of unfortunate in a way. I mean, maybe he should be making films and having more success that way, but he just the silly internet comedy show is the thing that made him a big name. But I mean, it did open doors for him, so that's good too. And maybe it added to his opportunities in the long run to do other stuff. And I mean, it seems like he enjoys it anyway. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'd have to hear more about that, about how he. I mean, 11 years later, what he thinks of his claim to fame. But yeah, I mean, on the other end, it is how he's getting paid. So there's that. But yeah, this was really incredible, and I really am just kind of floored by all that went into him making movies and how he stuck to it and how he got it done, and just his drive and commitment is really, really inspiring in a way. I mean, I know I could be doing better, but just so lazy. Just computer editing. It's like I don't want to do this, but he did it just in such a way that was so much infinitely worse. He actually found a way to make his films, and I can't even edit together a dumb video that would be it's just simple. I really need to get motivated. I really need to. This maybe was good for me. Maybe I need to. Maybe I can find the time. I just need to look harder. I don't know, but there we go. That was fun. That was a good video, and newfound respect when we do go back to the Angry Video Game Nerd. I'm gonna have a new respect for him, and definitely I look forward to that. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the reaction. Let me know if you did, and see you in the next one.